and welcome back to my channel. It's me, Megan, and I am back with another book in my Stephen King project where I'm reading every single Stephen King novel in chronological order. Today we are in 1990, where I will be talking about 4 past seasons. So, I decided that I'm going to break up each of the short stories in different videos, so this video will be talking about The Langoliers. I really enjoyed this short story. I thought that it was really well paced, and it was just a really creepy kind of, like, not creepy, but just very eerie and very, like, what's gonna happen? So basically the premise is there's a flight that is flying from Los Angeles to Boston, and mid-flight, somehow, someway, all of the passengers who weren't deeply asleep disappear. And so we're left with a handful of people who wake up and notice that they're the only ones left on the plane. And so they have to figure out what they're going to do, how they're going to land, and how to basically get back to their time zone, essentially, or their timeline. I thought it was just, like, the characterizations were very memorable, especially to me. I think he was supposed to be the most memorable because he was just the most angriest. And, I mean, I'm trying to think, the captain is also one who was very memorable just because he was very calm. He was the calming person because a lot of them could get very, really up there because they were really afraid, which I don't blame them because it's a very creepy kind of, like, what would you do in that situation? Like, I don't even know what I would do in that situation, so I thought it was just like a really heart-pumping kind of read, because you're like, I need to know what's gonna happen. Are they gonna survive? What are these Langoliers? The addition of what they are and what they look like is kind of, I don't know, I don't really like the way King described them, because he didn't really describe them very well in the book, and so you're kind of left going, okay, so what are these? But I thought the conclusion was really good, and I thought, the way that he incorporated Dinah and the blind girl, and how that kind of weaved into Toomey's story, and how it all kind of fed together to lead to the Langoliers. Like, it was just really well woven and written, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm glad we started off with a banger. There was a 1995 movie based off of it. It was 3 hours long, and it didn't always feel 3 hours long, but by the end, it started to really drag. And what I've noticed with King adaptations, especially the ones that he's in for some reason, what they tend to do is they take the book line by line, so you're almost reading, or you're almost watching what you read. So I found this movie to be very, very dialogue heavy, and it worked for some instances because you kind of needed an exposition as to how X worked and how you got from one point to another point. So it worked in some regards, and that's why I think it didn't feel 3 hours long. But by the time you got to the last hour, I was like, okay, enough talking about how you're going to get to there, and just do it. Because with a film, you can show people what you're doing. You don't need to overtly talk about what you need to do, because you can show it. And I think that's where this film kind of had problems, and that was kind of the only thing that I really had a problem with. The acting was superb. I think the actor who played Toomey did a really good job of bringing him to life. I swear, that guy, his throat probably hurt by the time he was done with this, because he was yelling the entire time. Every line he had was either shouting, yelling, screaming. Like, I was like, this man needs some help. He needs some Tylenol. But all the rest of the acting was really good. I really enjoyed it. It was suspenseful in a very slow-paced way. I mean, the novel's so short that, because it's a novella, so it didn't feel like there was a lot of space. And I think because the film was also low budget, that it kind of played into it being the 3-hour movie feeling kind of long, but it was saved by the acting, and I just think, also the storytelling was good. So the cheesy 90s nostalgia of the effects was very interesting. There were some moments where I couldn't even watch it because I was like, this is just too much for me. But all in all, it was a good movie, it was a good book, and I can't wait to jump into the next one, which is Secret Window, Secret Garden. I believe that's what that one is called. Yes, Secret Window, Secret Garden. So you'll see that in my next clip here. Hi everyone, and I am back with story number 2 in 4 Past Midnight. Almost forgot what this was called. 4 Past Midnight. So the second story is Secret Window, Secret Garden. So I enjoyed it. I thought coming off the heels of The Dark Tower, or not The Dark Tower, The Dark Half, where King writes about his alias kind of coming to life and being evil, I thought it was very interesting that King decided to continue writing about writers. I don't know, it just was like I kind of felt a little exhausted by it, but I still think that standing alone, it's still a good story, and I still was very invested. So this story stars Mort. He's a very famous writer, and one day he wakes up to find someone at his door. This man is knocking at his door telling him, "You plagiarized my story, I want my story back." And Mort's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And so the guy's like, "Pretty sure you do know what I'm talking about." So it becomes this like back and forth of him, Mort trying to prove to John Shooter that he didn't steal this story. He's like, "No, I wrote this story before you wrote it. I published it in this year, blah, blah, blah." And all the while, Mort's tying himself in knots, trying to find this publication, and the John Shooter guy's like, I want this specific thing. Like, I don't want a copy of the magazine. I don't want a copy of any, like a photocopy. Like, he wanted like the official papers. And I was like, this guy's kind of crazy. But as you keep going, you kind of start to question, is John Shooter even real? And that's kind of where the story kind of takes off, and it kind of keeps going, and it twists and it turns, and it's this and it's that. And I was very enthralled by it. I really enjoyed that because there was a lot of back and forth, because you were like, is Mort right? Is he actually plagiarizing? Or is John real? Like, you're going through a lot of things because you don't actually know what the truth is, and it was fun to like read through it and find out what like the truth was. So I thought that was really well done. I mean, I didn't really get why King needed to add his wife and then the whole cheating thing. I mean, I guess it was like backstory for Mort's character. Because that didn't really play into, I mean, it does, because you're left thinking maybe it's the guy the woman, his wife, cheated on with him with. Like, you kind of start thinking that way. So I guess that's probably why he added it. But I don't want to talk about the movie just yet. But, like, the movie does that in that way. But anyways, the book, I was like, I liked the direction that the book went in, but I get the ending wasn't as concrete as I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be a firm, like, no, it is this. But it kind of was like, it could be this, but it also could be that. So I was like, oh, alright. But I liked everything up to the lead up, and I liked that it was a really good and really fast-paced, heart-pumping story. I was like, this is actually, like, it was a lot of fun to read. So I don't even know what I would rate it. I guess out of 5, I would give it a good 4. So, jumping into the movie that stars Johnny Depp, in which his hair made me laugh. Like, it was so 2004 with his, like, really long, bleached out hair. I was like, alright, this was of the time. This makes a lot of sense. Anyways, I just don't understand why they decided to name the movie Secret Window. They should have named it Secret Garden, because if you've read the story and you've seen the book, or you watched the movie, it makes more sense for it to be cut into Secret Garden, not Secret Window. But I guess Secret Window gets more people intrigued, and like that sounds more of a thriller movie than Secret Garden. Secret Garden sounds like some sort of fancy whimsical thing. So I guess that's why they did it, but Secret Garden would have been better. But anyways, I digress. I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a really good adaptation. What I noticed was different was the way the characters felt towards each other. Like, in the book, obviously Mort and his wife are divorced, but he still has this love for her. Versus in the movie, they couldn't even they couldn't stand each other, and I was like, oh man, it made it really hard to watch at times. And then Ted in the movie was insufferable. Like, he wasn't great in the book, but they like dialed him up in the movie, and I said, bro, oh my god, he was probably the worst character that I did not want to watch anymore, because I'm like, get Ted out of here. He's so annoying. But anyways, I digress. That was probably one of the only things that I really didn't like about the movie. I mean, well, also, I touched on this like 2 seconds ago, where I was like, the direction of the movie was different, because in the book, it's Mort's fault what happens to him. Versus in the movie, they made it seem like it was his wife's fault, and I was like, why? They took out the whole subplot of the novel, like, or there was not a subplot, but they took out a whole backstory chunk that we get at the very end of the story, which explains what happens and explains why it happens to Mort. But they took that out of the film, and then they changed it, and it's just like, people hating on women, it's her fault. Yeah, that's what it felt like. So I was like, alright, okay. But otherwise, I mean, when you look at it as like a horror film, and like the adaptation and the acting, it all really worked and it all really came together. I don't really know if I even liked the ending all that much either. It was corny. I will put it that way. But those were my thoughts on Secret Window, Secret Garden. It was a good story. I'm curious to see where we kind of go from there, because we've had kind of sci-fi plot. Now we've got I wouldn't call it psycho thriller, but it's like a thriller. So I don't know where we're going with the librarian police, or the library policeman. So I'm excited to jump into that one. So until my next clip, I will see you later. And I'm back with my final video featuring 4 Past Midnight. Today I'm going to be talking about the last 2 short stories in this collection. Both of them didn't have adaptations, so I just kind of felt like I was going to lump them together. The first one being The Library Policeman, in which I just felt like that was probably the weakest story out of all of them. I liked the concept, and I actually thought that it was going to have something more to do with the consequences of not giving your library book back, and like how that would look, but it didn't really go that way, and I thought that would have been such a cool thing to like explore. Maybe he does that in another book, or maybe a future book, who knows. But The Library Policeman was about Sam. He has to write a speech for, I can't remember what it exactly, it's like for some group of some sort, and he hates writing speeches, so he's told, oh, well, why don't you go to the library, and why don't you take out books to make your speech really good? So that's what he does. When he gets there, there's a lot of creepy drawings in the kids zone. The library policeman is among them, like one of the paintings, and he meets a very scary librarian, who freaks him out, and he can't stop thinking about it. So he starts asking. So after he leaves, he starts kind of asking about it, and people kind of shy away, and you're like, well, what's going on here? And then when he goes to, because he can't find his books, I believe that's what happens, and he goes back to the library, and everything has changed, and he starts to wonder, did he dream everything that he saw? And so, interesting concept, because then like you learn of the librarian. I can't remember what her name is. Does it say here? No, it does not. But of course it does not. But basically, like, you dive deep into kind of like who that librarian, who she was, and like there's a lot of backstory into that. But I don't know, I felt like I got lost a lot when I was reading that, because I was like, wait, what's going on? Wait, who is she? What's happening? I find that even for the last story, the Sundog, what the heck was the Sundog? I think that's what. Yeah, it was called the Sundog. Um, even for that one, I would get a little lost in what was going on, and then but King had a way, and he did it for all four novellas. He had a way of really bringing everything back and tying it all back together, so that you're kind of left with the ending, and you're like, oh, that was actually kind of interesting. So like even the way this ended, you were like, that's actually really interesting. That's really cool how he tied that all together, even though I got very confused in the middle. Um, but I just, because I got so confused, it felt kind of muddly, so I was like, eh. The Sundog kind of had aspects of that where the writing kind of got lost along the way, just because there was all of this mystery around the camera. So I guess I'll just jump into the Sundog. There was just a lot happening there. Cause I was like, wait, and I didn't understand Pop's role in all of it. Like we were supposed to think that he was like evil, but was he evil? Did he know more than he knew? Like I was just like, I was always very curious about him as a character, because like he was kind of there in the backdrop to make everything to move the plot forward. So it was just very interesting to read about. But I did like the way that it all kind of came together, and that ending, the very end, like the epilogue, I was like, oh, oh, it could happen again. Oh, I just thought that was so cool. I really liked the ending of that one. Not to say I didn't like the ending of all of them. I think I've said it before, but I think King really does short stories well, because he doesn't have a lot of time to meander. I don't think that's the right word I'm looking for, but he doesn't have a lot of time to like go off on. I mean, he goes off on tangents, but he doesn't have as much time to do that. And so I find his shorter, quicker stories work really well. And he knows how to tie those ones up a lot better than longer novels. I don't know what it is. But I had such a good time reading this. I thought, at first I was like, I didn't really understand the point of why it was called Four Past Midnight. And then as I was thinking about it, it was like all of these stories kind of have like a dreamlike quality to them, like a nightmarish quality, if you will, because there's an aspect in each one of these stories where it's like it could happen, but also it's got like this weird kind of like melodrama kind of to it, where it's like, well, a plane can't just randomly like cross through time. Like that doesn't happen. Like you can't, like people don't just disappear off of flights. Like I mean the author one, like that could happen, but it was like that one was very psychological, and so that one has more. That's probably the most reasonably told story, because it's like that could happen if you have a nervous break. Um, and then these last two, like a mysterious camera taking pictures of a dog, and the dog possibly coming to life, and even for the librarian, where it's like she's a weird figure who needs to feed on it's all this like really creepy mind meldy kind of stuff. So I thought that was really good. I think the collection did a really good job of like bringing it all together, like all of those dreamlike nightmarish things that go spook in the night. I thought it was really well done. So I ended up rating this as a whole 4 stars, because it was a lot of fun to read and I enjoyed going through everything. So I'm sad that this has ended, but we must move on, which means that I'm going to be diving into my next read, which is The Wastelands. This is book number 3 in the Dark Tower series. This will be a reread for me. I read the series back in 2017 in full, and now I'm obviously going back in order of publication date. So this one was published, some say 1990, some say 1991. Like I think my book says 91. Yeah, my book says 91, but I've seen websites say 90. So we're here. We're here. 90, 91. It's all the same. This is a nice chonker. It's 700 pages. So I will be at this for the next little while. I think I'm probably going to come back mid-July with an update. So until then, I mean, if you've read this, you can let me know, because I have read this one. I just don't remember everything that happens in it, so it'll be fun to come back to this, because I really do like this series. Almost a trilogy. It's a series. But if you've read this one, let me know in the comments below, and that is all I have for you guys. So, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, a like, a subscribe, a do your thing, and I'll see you all in my next video. So thanks, and bye, guys!